By yourself.
Good evening. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and please remain standing for the invocation by Associate Jose Juan.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, gracious, wise, and eternal fathers, again, we thank you for your grace and your mercy. We thank you for another day of life. We just invoke your presence here into this town council. Father God, I ask that you might lead and direct them, that you might govern them, that they might govern this township pleasing in your sight.
Yes.
That the people of this township may be edified and built up for your glory. Amen.
Amen.
This regular meeting of the Township Council is being held in accordance with the schedule of the meetings of the Township Council, established and adopted by the Township Council, which gives a designated time, date, and place of this meeting. Adequate public notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. We're using an electronic amplifying and recording device in order to obtain a clear and audible record. And request all those wishing to speak be recognized and state your name and address directly to the microphone. The recording device will be solely utilized by the Township Clerk's Office for the preparation of the minutes and shall be the official record of the Township Council meetings. Madam Clerk, may I have the roll call, please?
Mr. Hutchison.
Present.
Ms. Grace.
She had a family matter.
Mr. Vignani.
He's on way on vacation.
Mrs. Stubbs.
She is ill.
Mrs. Winters. Here. Mrs. Strato. Here. Mr. Mercado.
Present.
Mr. Parliament.
Here.
Mr. Curtis.
Here.
Chief Harkins.
Here.
Mr. Chavo.
Here.
Before we go into a public portion, Resolution 2207-215, we have a closed session to deal with a litigation matter. Mr. Carr, that should take about roughly 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes maximum. So may I have a motion to go into closed session? On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison.
Yes.
Mrs. Winters. Yes. Mrs. Strato.
Yes.
Mr. Mercado.
Yes. Yeah.
Chief, I think we may have another chapter.
Yeah, that's what I jumped on.
So,
Great.
exchange of
Perfect. That's what I answered.
It's not. Yeah, we started. This building was here. This building was here. Right as we said, once they got it, you know, it shouldn't, because when they started putting that building up, I went up and measured from the center of the road to the alley. And it's like, come on. Well, no, it's from the center of the road, no matter how wide the road is, it's from the center. 50 feet off center, that's where they are. They have 4 lanes in the district, what, Jerry's, Johnny, and Robbie, they're gonna lose 15, 20 feet. They did that on Cross Keys, they were right. When they put 4 lanes in Cross Keys. It's not enough. The house is almost on sale when you have a highway in the front yard. 7:30, they're in a closed session right now. They started.
First time.
My son is I don't know the first time he slept when he sold you.
Actor Industries was already down at that corner. Well, I got, the one last truck was the stone came from, the invoice was from Glasgow. One side was Thompson's truck.
That's important.
You know, I saw that, I looked at it, I came right over, and looked at it, pretty easy, put in nothing. If you bring in more, bring it, get it, it's not bad at all. I've seen that sometimes the roads come in chips like 6-inch slivers, you know, big stuff like that. That's a nice, pretty good chop, you know. Beautiful. Well, I'm not ready. I still have it. It's decomposing underneath, it's gonna be, compost before this resin. I can come over with the trash, go anywhere, just push it around, to get a great spot. Push it right from where it is. I will bring it up. Oh, yeah. Well, that's what I was doing. Down the punch. Well, he's got enough.
Yeah. The kitchen. But that started with one heart attack.
Well, I think about things, it was before COVID, 2 years before COVID, this was 5 years old.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's not small. After you study
Now I'm not getting
We were in closed session discussing a litigation matter. That matter is still unresolved. Most likely we'll go into closed session at our next meeting, August 8th. Madam Clerk, can I have the roll call again?
Mr. Hutchison?
Present.
Mrs. Reynolds? Here. Mrs. Strato? Here. Mr. Mercado?
Present.
Mr. Parliament?
Here.
Mr. Curtis?
Here.
Chief Harkins?
Here.
Mr. Chadwell?
Here. We now have our first public portion. This is for agenda items only. Anyone wishing to speak, please raise your hand. Each speaker is allotted 3 minutes, and there's 15 minutes total for the public portion. Anyone like to speak in the first public portion? Mr. Polidoro.
Good evening, Council. Ray Polidor from the Historic Village of Ariel.
Good evening.
In regards to the first ordinance on the agenda tonight, and my question is that of clarity I'm looking for. Starting off with this question, is it my understanding that the MUA handles just sewage, does not handle stormwater, and that stormwater is the responsibility of the township? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
CES is our stormwater management professional.
Okay, and again, for curiosity reasons, if we have an entity that already takes care of pipes that transfer water from point A to point B, one being sewage, obviously the other being fresh water being returned to the tributaries and creeks, would that be something that any municipality, including ours, would want to have under the jurisdiction of the MUA? Or I want to know what your opinion is, not quite the state's opinion, because I really don't value that.
I don't know of any sewage authority that also operates and maintains stormwater lines. I'm not aware of that, right?
Okay, I mean, it just seems common sense, pipes, water, some's got a little debris in it, others don't, but it just seems that it would be,
I've never heard of that.
it would, I mean, just common sense, it sounds smart.
The municipalities are responsible for it.
Okay, and that's, to the best of your knowledge, throughout the state?
That's who the DEP, they call us.
Okay, understood. All right, so then it looks like we're borrowing another $2 million to take on this task, is that correct?
Well, it's under the New Jersey Environmental Infrastructure Trust, NJEITIT. And under that program, 50% is a 0% interest rate. The other 50% is what they call an IBANK rate, which is AAA rated, so it would be a good rate, even though rates are going up, as we all know.
Okay. May I ask a question, interject real quick? What's from the last budget, what's our surplus?
Surplus balance now, or
Yes.
what we took in and what we used?
Surplus balance now.
I would say we're probably down to, don't quote me on it, 300, 200,000.
Okay. And we still,
3.8 million in the budget.
and we still have 3.6 million cash on hand that we have taken that we're going to use next year instead of using this year. The question I'm getting at is basically you got cash in your pocket and you're whipping out the credit card. When you know, the credit cards do that. You know, credit is credit. And again, American Express is a unique credit card because basically you spend and at the end of the month you pay your bill. It's okay to have to pay a bill off right away and not carry debt. And of course, we know that debt service is one of the exemptions that allows a municipality to ignore the 2% cap, which we have done for quite some time. And with the COVID money that was provided to township, which was designed to include infrastructure, I'm not quite sure why deferring cash on hand or the expectation of that cash warrants, once again, borrowing. I'm just trying to see if there's a way you guys can get out of the habit of borrowing and raising taxes, because it's 10%, almost 10% zero, 10% zero, 10% zero, borrow, where would it be okay to reach in your pocket, pull the cash out and pay for something? That's what I'm getting at.
Thank you, Mr. Polidoro.
And it's okay to answer after I walk away. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Mr. Crew?
Evening, Council. Paul Crew, Blackwood Estates. With regard to the bid report for the technical robot, looks like it came in line. I had asked a couple questions at the last meeting of Chief, and he suggested it would come in at about $50,000. I think the official number was in the $54,000 area. Just a question on how that's funded. Is this outside of the police budget? Is this an ad hoc request for a tactical robot?
This was
This is in the capital budget. This is in the capital budget.
Okay, so these funds have already been assigned?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Let's see. Sorry, I was looking at resolution 203, assignment of municipal held liens for the township of Gloucester to private owner. Was just wondering what that was about. Answer?
That's a private owner request, that, there was a lien on this property, it's adjoining property to theirs, I believe.
I don't know.
I don't remember the exact facts, but they made a request, statute authorizes and allows to sign it, as long as they pay it's due. And that's that.
Okay, so this was a single property
Person
instance, made a request, okay.
That had to be advertised. There's a number of things of process that items that have to be completed in order for that to go through.
Okay, understood, thank you. I guess I would somewhat second a line of thinking that Ray had with regard to this stormwater management. And it would be a point I made of the use of the 3.6 in federal funds. You know, one of the highlighted areas that those funds could be used would be for infrastructure improvements. And this would seem to fit that kind of in a perfect sense. So while I understand, you know, I take the 0% for 15-month offers all the time. It just makes sense, right? I don't have any problem with that, Tom. That makes a lot of sense. But for that other 50% in a higher interest rate environment, which would in this circumstance be $1 million, why don't we consider utilizing those monies we've all already paid that are coming back to us to pay for that $1 million of this infrastructure project? Is that something that makes sense to the council members? Because it seems, you know, somewhat of an obvious use case, at least to me, and sounds like to Ray.
What is the interest rate? I don't have that. It varies. It's an IBAC rate. Well, you gotta remember, feds are gonna bump up the rates by 0.75% this week. So that's significant. We're gonna see interest rates going up. Gotta happen.
Thank you, Mr. Krug.
Well, I'm not inclined to utilize the COVID funds for this. I think COVID funds are going to be better utilized, as we anticipated when we talked about it during the budget sessions, that we were going to use it towards next year's budget, also the tax related citizens.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Thank you, Mr. Krug. Is there anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close the first public portion. Ordinance first reading, introduction, there will be a hearing at the second reading. Bond ordinance authorizing various improvements to the stormwater drainage system in the township of Gloucester, county of Camden, New Jersey, appropriating a sum of $2 million. Therefore, authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds or bond anticipation notes of the township of Gloucester, county of Camden, New Jersey, in the aggregate principal amount of up to $2 million, making certain determination covenants and authorizing certain related actions in connections with the foregoing. This provides various improvements to the stormwater drainage system in the neighborhood of Cherrywood, particularly replacement of stormwater piping in Blue Jay Drive and Crane Place. For those who have attended our meetings over the years, there have been issues with stormwater management in that development. On the agenda today on the resolution, we have another phase of Cherrywood project of repaving and construction that's taken place in that neighborhood. And that has been, in the time I've been here on council, we're at phase 9 or 10, Mr. Chadwell?
Construction for phase 9 and design.
Absolutely. So this is much needed in that particular neighborhood. I entertain a motion.
Make that motion.
Second.
On the question, Roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mrs. Reynolds?
Yes.
Mrs. Estrada?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Ordinance, second reading, there will be a public hearing. Ordinance 0-22-08, ordinance amending Chapter 81 of the Code of the Township of Gloucester entitled Vehicles and Traffic of the Code of the Township of Gloucester. This permits the municipality to enforce any type of parking violations in the main state center for the arts parking lot at 27 South Black Forest Pike. I'll open up the public hearing. Close public hearing. I entertain the motion.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mrs. Reynolds?
Yes.
Mrs. Estrada?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Next is ordinance 0-22-09. This is a second reading. There will be a public hearing. Ordinance of the Township of Gloucester amending mortgagee registration relating to foreclosure and abandoned real property mortgages in foreclosure and providing for the form of registration and requiring maintenance and security by the mortgagees for the care, maintenance, security, and upkeep of the exterior of foreclosure and abandoned residential property by creditors who have filed a summons and foreclosure complaint regarding property within the Township of Gloucester. When this ordinance was first enacted, we were in the midst of coming out of a recession where there was properties that were not being maintained by the bank owners and lien holders. So therefore, the township put this in place, and this is updating that ordinance. We'll now open up the public hearing. Seeing none, I entertain a motion.
Mr. Mercado, I'd like
Yes.
to make a motion to table this.
Okay.
I'd like to look at it a little more in depth, to see if we're serving the residents of the town as best we can with enacting this legislation or revising this legislation.
All right, there's a motion on the floor to table. Is there a second?
Second.
This is a question, is there a time that you want to be able, or this is the next meeting?
Just the next meeting.
Okay, I'm fine with that. On the question to table, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mrs. Reynolds?
Yes.
Mrs. Estrada?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes, to table. We now have our consent agenda. Any council member would like to have any item removed from the consent agenda, please speak up. Hearing none, I entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mrs. Reynolds?
Yes.
Mrs. Estrada?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. I have some EGOV emails. Bear with me. Wait a minute. The addendum, I'm sorry. Before we go to the EGOVs, I have an addendum. Should have mentioned that earlier. I do apologize. Recently, the state allowed our tax bills are going to be delayed, the mailing. So we're providing an extension of our third quarter grace period. So property taxes are payable August 1st. This will be extended to August 30th for all third quarter taxes. Mr. Karsh, you want to explain?
This is 100% the state holding up the certifications. So we just received them. They went to the county last week. I think the county did a fairly good job turning them over. So we really were not in a position to do anything as far as the bills until the state released this thing.
So what I've asked Mr. Karsh when he asked me if he could walk us on this afternoon is that we notify residents via our website, our social media sites, anything else, and get this information out. For those who are watching or attending here, please let your neighbors know that this will extend, if this resolution passes, extends all third quarter taxes to Tuesday, August 30th, 2022. I entertain a motion for resolution 2207-214.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mrs. Reynolds?
Yes.
Mrs. Estrada?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Anyway, I got two. Let's start off, Mr. Sweet. Sam Sweet from 18 Elizabeth Place, Ariel. It appears that Gloucester Township is borrowing $2 million to upgrade fix the stormwater drainage system. So the response to that project is part of a stormwater improvements to Sherwood neighborhoods ongoing program to repair infrastructure in that neighborhood. The second question, isn't there a program with the state that that Gloucester Township has utilized in the past? What is the reason we are not utilizing that avenue? The township is utilizing the New Jersey Infrastructure Trust. That's the main funding source Mr. Cars had indicated earlier. The first 50% of it is 0% interest. It's currently anticipated that the project will qualify 50% state funds and 50% IBAC funds. And there's also a possibility for a small portion of it being forgiven.
So that is the program that Mr. Sweet is talking about.
Yes. Our next question is from Denise Coyne.
Yeah, the number portion. Which one's Sweet?
Oh, also, why would we, excuse me, one more question, Mr. Sweet. Also, why would we not, I'm reading it how it's written. Also, why would we not use the COVID money for this expenditure? Isn't fixing infrastructure an allowable expense? We briefly addressed that. There's this opportunity to use this for needed stormwater improvement management systems in Sherwood neighborhood. It's aging infrastructure. And this also using the money, the ARP money, we can use that throughout the township. It's just as opposed to just one particular area. This is from Denise Coyne. I'm asking my question from July 11th, 2022, a second time because the response that was given did not answer my question. Please respond with a yes or no answer. Is the rehabilitation project recently approved for block 1701, lots 39 through 45, and block 1706, lots 1 through 22 in Brittany Woods eligible for any funding from the township's Affordable Housing Trust Fund? There was an answer that was from the July 11th response, which we believe was appropriate. It's not a yes or no answer. Per the Gloucester Township, Camden County Affordable Housing Trust Fund spending plan adopted in March of 2022, no funding has been allocated to block 1701, lots 39 to 45, and block 1706, lots 1 to 22 in Brittany Woods. 2, did the Economic Development Corporation or tri-associates have any role in finding or obtaining financing for the redevelopment plan for the Brittany Woods rental units? There's nothing on file with our office with Township and also with Mr. Bach indicating that EDC or Triad played any role in financing or obtaining financing for the redevelopment plan for the Brittany Woods rental units. That concludes our EGOV questions. We'll now open up the second public portion. Anyone wishing to speak, please raise your hand. Each speaker is entitled to 5 minutes. There is 30 minutes for the second public portion. Mr. Krug.
Evening again, council.
Good evening.
So I ran out of time in that first public portion, so I just want to follow up. So obviously, Councilman Hutchison is not inclined to use our tax dollars returned to us to try to improve this infrastructure project. I was interested to hear from other council members whether they're inclined or not inclined. Specifically, not for $2 million, for $1 million. Understand that taking a 0% loan makes sense.
Well, can I finish my response that I kind of shot it out real quick.
Sure.
I think that this is our 9th or 10th project there. This is something that's happening quite. And just because we have the money in the account, well, how we got the COVID, the second.
We have 3.4 million came in today.
It came in today, okay. What are we gonna do next year, the next question? We're
May I
consistent.
ask one stipulation? Are there certain areas that those funds can be used?
It's opened up pretty wide right now.
It's opened up wide.
First,
But this,
first it was very restricted,
okay,
and then they change the rules on it. You can anticipate it as a revenue line item in your budget, and that's what we did with the last allocation.
Okay. But infrastructure is still
It's
permitted
permissible,
use.
but if I can correct you, I think you're thinking that you can take the 0% from the NJEIT and then pay off whatever the iBank rate is with $1 million. You cannot do that. It's a program that is inclusive of both elements. You take a loan out with them, you're taking a loan out with them, and you're getting 0% on half of it, and you're paying that iBank rate. It's going to get financed over a period of years.
There's a prepayment penalty?
Yes, you cannot do that.
You cannot.
They will not allow it.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting.
I think in this particular situation, I think that we should use it next year. I don't think we should use it on this project. I think that this particular financing option is better than utilizing it now.
Well, certainly what Mr. Curtis just explained kind of null and voids, at least what I had in my head as the way to go about it, which is, sure, get the 0%, but pay the $1 million so we don't have the interest rate on the backs of the taxpayers. If the stipulations of the loan suggest that there's a prepayment penalty or you can't even prepay, then it's kind of null and void.
And in some cases, they actually forgive part of the payment towards the end of the loan. I'm not saying they're going to definitely do that for us, but in some cases they have done that.
Okay, understood. Thank you for the explanation. If I could just dig in, why are you so focused on next year's budget and utilizing these funds then, as opposed to opportunities that are in front of us, knowing that the net has been cast a little bit wider on what we can use it for?
Well, you may not recall, but when we were discussing the COVID funds that we got, I didn't want to see gimmicks, manipulating the uses of funds, as people have suggested. When I come to the microphone, I want it to be used not in 1 year. I didn't want it all to be used next year when there's an election, okay, to reduce it to 0. And I didn't want it all to be used this year to reduce it to 0. Half this year, half next year. We received the first half a while ago, which made it appropriate to utilize in the current year's budget. We just received the money. We didn't know when we were going to receive it. We received it based on what Tom's saying today or yesterday. So it fell in line with the thought that you should use it in next year's budget. So that's why I'm saying it. It's just I don't want games to be.
Sure. So I guess I've made the argument that in order to get to the point next year when everybody gets all huffy puffy about the budget, in order to avoid that, we have to use every opportunity between now and then to try to drive down costs and reduce that budget so that when it becomes time, that there may not even be a need to get up in arms, because maybe next year you're actually able to keep it even or give us a reduction, but that takes working towards that all this year, I think, right? Looking for cost savings and opportunities. So that's why I suggest, we look at the present to help save for the future. Does that make sense? Is that something you think you could get on board with?
We did it last year. We said the same thing, and I wasn't able to make you happy this year or make anything this year, but it's a theory of basketball. Absolutely.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Ms. Smithman.
Hello, good evening. My name is Shaughnessy Smithman. I reside in the SDK Millbridge Garden apartment complex. It's located on Millbrook Court, apartment 341. Hi. I wanted to know if I could bring up once again, we have planning here, money being asked for developing the town. If they could consider the address for the local municipality and the local fire departments to be located on street signs. If it's a street sign located in Gloucester Township, if it indicates the name of a street that it's on, whatever local fire department serves that spot of earth, put that fire department on there with the address in raised or recessed writing, so that somebody who is either not familiar with the language and how to write it, or is possibly disabled in their hands or joints, could place the postcard or envelope against it and use a chalk or a crayon or even a green leaf to imprint onto the envelope the address. You can indicate it with a picture, one for the police, one for the fire department. You could put it in Braille. You could put it at wheelchair height, so it's accessible to people in wheelchairs, or to people of smaller stature, or children. Also, the address to the local municipality for the purpose of non-emergencies. So if someone is walking and they're not from the town, or they're not sure of what municipality or what fire department serves that area, they go to the closest street sign. They'll know that on that sign, they will know that that particular spot is enforced by the laws and ordinances of the municipality, police municipality located on there, and the fire department located on there. For the case of a non-emergency, if they accidentally mail a warning or something they notice to the wrong fire department, the local fire department should be able to contact the other fire department, but it's close. I think that would be extremely helpful. I reside in the SDK Millbridge Gardens apartment complex. My address is Clementon, New Jersey, 08021. But I'm told I do not use the Clementon Police Department or municipality. I'm told I'm to use Gloucester Township, even though the closest intersection is Laurel Hill. This Gloucester Township, the zip code for this township is written both 08021 and 08012, depending on what piece of paper you're looking at. It becomes very confusing. There is also a local Gloucester Township Fire Department located near, what is that, Little Gloucester Road and Blackwood Clementon Road. I'm told that I'm to utilize the Choose Landing Fire Department. But this is the Gloucester Township municipality. It can become very confusing. I have a little less than 2 minutes left. If I could bring up once again, an example of a non-emergency would be such an instance of if someone was unaware that they were pregnant and they had a stillborn child unexpectedly and not knowing. When I brought that up before, I was told that everyone would know to call 911. I'm going to express once again that they would not know to call 911. It is not innate to every person. And since this could happen to any person, in order to cover everyone with some type of guidance and ordinance on what to do, it would help more than just that person. It would help anyone that found the remains, either discarded through whatever way that they would think of in a panic. I don't know, it never occurred to me, never happened to me. But anyone that it happened to, even just thinking about it, I don't think that they would be able to stand here and even ask anything about this topic. You would help the local police officers and first responders that would have to go and respond to these scenes. You would be protecting the detectives that would have to investigate it. If you could save just one instance, if the first part of that, if your excuse is to say people should know to call 911, I'm going to begin with the street signs. Every single street sign, if it is located in the township, put on there the police municipality that serves that spot of earth. That will get the non-emergency communication beginning. Thank you.
Ms. Smith, before you go, when I run, I do a lot of thinking, and I thought about the comments that you've made over the last year in our meetings. And I've thought about maybe sitting down next to you prior to the beginning of the meeting and having a conversation with you, a frank conversation about some of the topics that you brought up here. To be quite frank with you,
What do you mean by frank?
Very honest and open with you.
To speak plainly.
Exactly. To speak plainly. You're entitled to your 5 minutes and it's uninterrupted. And I know that you're passionate about this. This is personal to you as well. And
It's personal to anyone.
And you're advocating for those. But some of the topic that you bring here, that's not something that we can address. I can't.
You cannot address the local police department or the
Well, we
local
have.
fire
We
department?
have, and we've spoken at length about that several times. And you continue to bring it up. I said, we're not going to put Braille signs. We're not going to have signs on the side of the fire hydrant.
No,
We're not-
I agree, I
May I
agree.
finish? May I finish? Thank you. So those things, or wheelchair height and adding municipality, we've talked about the things that are in place now. And you can continue to come up here, and I'm not going to interrupt you when you speak because you're passionate about this. But we're not moving forward with those recommendations that you've asked for. I know you're passionate about stillborn children and about making sure that people have a place to go or know where to go with that. Again, that's not something that us as council can address, or as a township. We try to forward you to other agencies to possibly help you with that. But you can continue to come up here, and may I finish? Continue to come up here, and you can have your 5 minutes, but I think you're going to get the same response back from council here.
Well, the request is because if you can get a piece of land, ultimately, if there could be a piece of land dedicated to bury the remains of either cremated or, what is that, formaldehyde stillborn children, give them a resting place. There's no resting place reserved for
They
it.
should have a proper resting place, but I don't believe that this is the venue to have that conversation.
Well, what would the venue be to have a conversation to ultimately end up with a resting place for stillborn children?
And maybe that's a conversation we could have one day out in the back there before a meeting or after a meeting. Okay? Thank you, Ms. Smithman. And have a
I
great
didn't
evening.
answer the question, but good day, council.
Thank you. Mr. Polidoro.
Good evening again, Council. Ray Polidoro from Ariel.
Good evening again.
So, Paul asked if you prepaid down the amount of that $1 million. Was there a penalty? And you stated yes, that is by the state, correct? So
Penalty? No, I don't believe they allow you to do it.
you can't do it.
No, it's a package deal. You're issuing that bond ordinance and you're signing the agreements with NJEIT, you're accepting the whole thing as a package.
So the municipalities, let's say you're sitting on some cash and you've got this much borrowed and you want to pay that loan down, it's prohibited.
You could adjust what you're borrowing from them in total.
But then it would affect your 50% of the zero.
You'd still have 50. If you made it $1 million, you'd have 500,000.
Right. And I get all that, but it just is really a sad state of affairs that you're sitting on cash. You've got 50% of that money that is zero interest, which is a great deal, but you can't pay that down. That's kind of sad that a municipality sitting with cash on hand can't do that. However, I was going to ask
I think
if,
it's a pretty good deal.
well, it's pretty sad that if you're sitting on money, you can't pay down we have credit cards. And if you want to make an extra payment on your credit card, you can do that. You can pay your credit cards down. Government can't.
I would ask you to look at our debt as it compares to any other municipality, and ours is relatively low compared to other municipalities.
Yeah, but there's also some things that the debt really is negative. And then first thing is, of course, is that if you didn't have debt, you would only be able to raise the taxes 2%.
Running a township is the infrastructure improvements and the equipment that you need. And that is all by law through local finance board and local bond law done through issuance of debt.
One day, I would love to see this township say, you know what, we're going to do things better than the state allows. because the state is
I
pathetic.
don't see us doing those types of things with cash.
Again, it's great to be ranked number 49 out of 50, and we keep on proving why. Ms. Coyne asked a question regarding,
That's for New Jersey.
it's,
Go
yeah,
ahead, Ray.
I'm not criticizing. What they allow you to do is one thing, but it doesn't mean you should. In any event, Ms. Coyne asked a question. Her question sounded pretty specific, and that was it, her question was yes or no for eligibility of that project. She didn't ask if money was allocated. She asked if it was eligible, and I would like to see a clear answer on the eligibility of trust fund money for that project. We know that it has not been allocated, but the eligibility is the question.
Bear with me.
Sure, thank you. Could we stop the clock while you're thinking and looking?
No, we can keep it going.
Okay, thought so. While you're looking, I just have one other thing to address, may I utilize my time. Mr. Hutchinson is very in favor of taking the $3.6 million and putting it on to next year. He's thinking that'll be great and helpful. It's ironic though, because in 2022, we had, again, an almost 10% tax increase. And you're gonna put it on for next year, which we expect is zero, because you guys are very good in no numbers years. Is it possible you could take that 3.6 and just jump over the next year and maybe apply it towards the even number year where you guys pound us our brains in for taxes? I mean, it's zero next year. You don't need the 3.6. You know you're not going to. The magic pen always works in those numbered years. Is it possible you can take that 3.6 and save the people some more money? You're going over 2%. You're going to go 8, 9, 10, 11%. It used to be a pattern. Now it's a habit. Any objection to taking that money, saving it for the following year, and saving us some tax dollars or tax increase? Just a thought. Anyone?
Is that a rhetorical question? That's sincere.
You thought it was pretty funny.
I did.
Okay.
But you know, we're not playing.
If I knew there wouldn't be a 10% tax increase in every even numbered years. Saving money, and you did use the word election year, so I'm only going to repeat what you said. Putting it off for an election year, it's a zero. We got a surplus. We got COVID money. Let's save it for the following year. Maybe you could not hit us as hard.
That money is invested. It's gonna be used for next year to offset.
It's funny. Whatever. I'd like to see 2024. I'd like to see what the future brings for 2024. Mr. McCarty, did you find what you're looking for?
Yes, in her question, she asked if it was eligible for any funding. No funding was used for it, so that was not answered. So I'll get back to Mr. Bach and ask about if it's eligible.
Eligible, and we
No
can have.
funding was used for it, but
Is it possible I could get that answer before the next council meeting?
yeah, I get that too.
Okay, someone has my email address. The clerk does
We
at
all
least.
do.
All right, have a
Thank
great
you.
night. Thank you.
Have a great evening. Is there anyone else that has not spoken yet? Yes, sir.
Just, my name's Tom Ennis. I live at 685 Hickstown Road.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. My first time here. I've been in town for 45 years. I'm ashamed to say it's my first time. Well, no, I was at some council meetings a long time ago. Anyway, I received a letter, certified letter, requesting a delineation of wetlands that are behind my property on Hickstown Road. And I would just like to be assured, I was there when these wetlands were established by DEP and the township. And I'd like to be assured that the township would be involved in any delineation of these existing wetlands.
Mr. Coleman. Oh, do you have a copy of that? Is that letter in your hand?
Yeah, your clerk has a copy of this letter.
You have a copy of it? Okay. Not here. Okay.
I'd have to look into the issue. I'm not sure if I understand the question.
Okay. DEP sent Mr. Ennis a letter of delineation of wetlands. He's on Hickstown Road. I get his question is the township will be involved in any delineation. Is that correct?
Correct. They were in the first place involved.
Are you doing any projects out there? Are you doing something to your property?
There was an application made to the DEP and Mr. Ennis is within
the allotted square footage for notification. So there was an application to them. They provided the information and their directives come to my office. We did not have the information, so I reached out to Equal Signs and provided Mr. Ennis and Sal with all the
Because
information.
he's within 200 feet of the project.
Correct, it's behind his home. And he basically wants to be assured that we are not going to support any type of structure or building on that property, but at this point, we, as a municipality, we don't know what the application is for. It's just in the delineation process.
We don't know anything about the project.
Can that letter, Nancy, share the letter with Mr. Carlemere, and Mr. Carlemere, can you contact Mr. Ennis regarding that letter, because I'm coming in cold, I don't know
That'd be
anything
fine.
about this, okay?
I don't need to know the project. I just want to know that the township's looking out for me.
Okay.
You know, they're on board.
Does,
I
she
have
has your
all
contact
this
information, she has your contact information, Mr. Carmel will grab that from the
Okay.
clerk and give you a call this week.
The other portion of that question is when they did rezone that from residential to light industry back in the 70s, it was highly contested. However, the rezoning went through. And to do that, they created a buffer zone between the residential properties and the light industry. Half of which, it's 100-foot wide, runs from Hickstown Road to the rear, all the way to the rear of those properties. Half of which was deeded to the residential owners. So I have a piece of that property, but it's listed on this delineation request as being part of the light industry. I'd like to make sure that everyone's aware that that zoning property does exist. And I'm assuming because it was a buffer zone that it's untouchable. And I just want to get on board with that right up front, because I don't know what the project is.
If there's development going around you, you can't reach that buffer zone.
Well, as I said, I just,
On the board, give you.
You need some assurances.
yep. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Ennis.
all.
Appreciate it. Sir, are you with Mr. Ennis, or you're speaking as well? You had your hand raised.
Yes.
Barry Salvatore, 663 Hickstown Road, Sigleville, New Jersey.
Good evening, Mr. Salvatore.
Just to piggyback off of what Mr. Ennis was talking about, Eco Sciences has applied for the wetlands variance. Now, rumors, again, they just run amok, but through conversations, I don't know why the township doesn't have any knowledge, nor does the DEP have any knowledge of what the project is or not that they are releasing. The property has already been marked out for gas. So, I mean, somebody's jumping ahead of the gun. Hickstown Road directly across the street from the Gloucester Township or Gloucester County, Camden County shooting range. It's all marked out for gas already. So somebody's already jumping ahead of the gun.
Utility markups are usually just for survey a lot of the times.
I
Very preliminary.
I absolutely understand that, but I mean, somebody's moving ahead with that project, or in their mind, whether it's approved or not. So I just want to make sure that somebody's finding out what it is exactly that they're planning on putting there. Because according to people that I spoke with at two businesses along there, because I'm going to start going door to door, because if it's what they have said it's going to be, I don't want it. But the rumor from these businesses that have spoken with the people who are applying for the variance is that they want to put a warehouse there. Okay.
So there's a project that's either in the planning or zoning board.
It's somewhere.
Maybe a site plan, maybe zoning related.
I mean, to apply for.
Part of their engineering requires wetland delineation. They're noticing anyone within 200 feet. Do you know, Nancy?
I did, call Donna Jones when Sal was in the office.
The property is owned by an Edwin Janika from Blackwood. I don't know who he is, but I just know that that's the owner of that property.
No, not as of yet.
Once I take a look at it, maybe I'll get a better understanding of why you're being sent, or your neighbor's being sent a request for wetlands delineation. it might be just noticing what they have to do. And that must be related to either some project or intended project, but I'll know better once I look at it.
Because I'd like to, I mean, that area is already overly congested. So we just want to know what it is. And they've notified the residents out on Jarvis as well and back off of, I believe it's Poplar or one of the streets back there. And shame on me for not going door to door and bringing those people here today as well, because we all deserve to know what it is that somebody's planning on putting back there. They've already cleared a large portion of it over the past couple of years. So it's been slowly cleared. And it's 18.57 acres. So that's a lot of land. And that's a lot of infringement on wetlands as well.
Nancy, do you have Mr. Salvatore's contact information as well?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Carr. Mr. Carmer will reach out to you as well, okay?
Thank you very much.
As well as Mr. Evans.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who has not spoken? Mr. Krug, you're our last speaker of the evening.
Council President, I won't ask for time in your mind while you're running, but if you do have some time and think of some ways to reduce the budget, then that would be much appreciated.
I thought of you, Paul. I'm not gonna lie. I thought about you.
I just wanted to ask a process matter, and please don't take this in accusatory way, but once these meetings are done and you hear the citizens' viewpoints and they articulate some of their passion points or maybe even make suggestions, what happens with those once this meeting is adjourned? And what I mean by that is, at least in my profession, if I'm the project manager, typically I send out, an after action report that has certain action items on it. And I'm wondering if council does something like that in order to coordinate in between the 2-week periods that we get to meet and have dialogue together. Because just a couple of things on my mind as I've thought back over, let's say, the last quarter. One thing would be, Brian has brought up the fact of the passion point of more open space, and he suggested potentially zoning some areas for open space. And I'd like to know if that was talked about. I've brought up the suggestion that with regard to the letters of forget what the exact wording is, but the letters of approval for recreational marijuana facilities, maybe we cap that. But I haven't seen, although Mr. Hutchison, you've expressed, and I think we align here, that maybe some type of cap on those letters of commitment makes sense, but I haven't seen a resolution come through. So these things remain, let's say, in limbo or in progress or pending. And I think it's hard for some of us, or it would be easier for me if we heard back on some of these, suggestions and some of the things that we're bringing in front of you.
I don't keep a running list, but I do have things that are important to me. Brian's passion for open space is something that I share. And I look for opportunities in the town. In fact, somebody approached me recently with another opportunity. So I feel that I can bring that to council president, and if he wants to make that something that council addresses, or that we're going to bring that to the administration, that's his prerogative. In my opinion, is how I look at it. The ordinance tonight that I asked to table, that is something that I will push. Okay, I will first try to improve it, and if I can improve it, I will then look to to Mr. Parlier and to Council President before it's brought back to the council. So that's how I do it.
So there was a little bit of an I mentality there, or
Yes,
let's call it a silo.
Yeah.
And so if there's 7 silos and they're not speaking to one another and coordinating on certain action items, how do we, the citizens expect to see, our suggestions onto a resolution that's
Well, there's
meaningful?
a bullhorn that I get, from Mr. Polidoro quite frequently. So if anybody has something that they want to be addressed by council, speak to Mr. Polidoro. But no, I understand.
I guess my point is, if there is not a process, and the council president, maybe you can enlighten me if there is one, but if there's not, could we put in place a process where action items were sent out to be thought about, like on your run? Because I'm not always gonna come to the microphone and immediately you're gonna agree with me. Maybe it's gonna take some time sleeping on a topic, or maybe you need to hear it multiple times and go through the rehearsal in your head. And then you come back and you discuss it together to put it to a resolution. Is that something that we could have a more, I guess, process-based focus on?
Just to echo what Dan said, there's no formal process, and for us to congregate or meet, we can't do that in a formal setting. Conversations take place. Dan called me about a concern he had regarding the ordinance today, and we had that conversation. Michelle has reached out to me on many occasions about different things that concern her, that have been said at a meeting. Along with Councilman Trotto, Miss Grace, her and I had extensive conversations about the Brittany Woods project and why that project, for some reason, there's a spotlight put on that project. And I wholeheartedly agreed with some of the things that she came up with. And I expressed my opinions on why I believe that project is earmarked or spotlighted by folks. So there's not a formal process. There's conversations that take place amongst individuals about certain things that come up. There's things that are said at this meeting that you may think they fall upon deaf ears, but there's conversations that take place afterwards throughout the weeks about, oh, you know what, that's not a bad idea. You know what, oh, we can agree on that. But sometimes it's not the message, it's the messenger. And oftentimes, we talk about the reactions that they get from my colleagues on council or myself here, but also, folks in the audience don't see the reactions that we're getting from the speaker or the things that are said. And again, it doesn't fall upon deaf ears. Sometimes it's not the message, it's the messenger. And
So-
in the past, we've talked about working together. We've talked about doing different things, and then, there's, a glow twit post or something like that, or maybe a township talk post or something. That's not productive. If we want to work together, then we work together. Our workshops, if any council member would like to have any item placed on our workshop agenda, sure. Let's sit down and discuss it. But quite frankly, you've seen we've canceled a couple workshop agendas because I've had one item that took about maybe 2 minutes to discuss. So that's why we had at our last meeting, when you asked about the process, I said, Mr. Cardis, we're going to put that on to our regular agenda rather than the workshop agenda. But a lot of the conversations and discussions will take place at a workshop agenda. There are things that any of my colleagues want to bring up, we can put it on the agenda. If there's something that you're interested in, that we can discuss on the agenda. Run it by me. We'll place, I set the agenda, but that's where those discussions can take place. But your passion for Blackwood, the fact that it's no coincidence that the farmers market is back, and I think the township has done a yeoman's job in promoting that Thursday event. We think that's a fun time there, and people who go there, they enjoy it. We bought a business from Glendora, a 70-year-old business that's doing business downtown Blackwood, and people say, I didn't know you existed. Tony Morales has been here forever, but that's an opportunity to bring different people to that audience in downtown Blackwood. So, but again, there's not a formal process. It's kind of informal in conversations. But thank you for your comments.
Sure. 2 seconds, just because you said persistence and consistency pays off. I will ask for that cap on the recreational marijuana facilities
And
and
I think that's
stores,
something,
and
you know
if
what?
I could see it on
And I don't think
resolution,
you're
love
gonna
it.
get any pushback from here. I think that there should be, a cap. I think you've heard me talk about, my own personal opinions about it. And when I had a conversation with one of the, proprietors, I guess for lack of a better word, in the parking lot after a meeting, I'm very naive about it, all of that stuff. I never done a drug in my life. I consider marijuana a drug. And I've never taken, never done it, have no interest in it. But, you know, there's medicinal purposes for it. There's some people use it for recreation. It is a tax revenue. I see the tax figures from the existing municipalities that have them, and they're mind-boggling. But you know, I did some research on it and had conversations with people about it, and I still have my own personal opinions, but I also look at what's in the best interest of the town. But I do agree with you. Yes, the cap, the locations of where they're located, you know, those are chief concerns to me individually. You know, I'm sure my colleagues have some concerns as well. So, but thank you for your comments today.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll close the second public portion. Holding of directors.
Mr. Grolier?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Curtis?
Nothing to report.
Chief Harkins?
Just want to remind the council and the town National Night Out. We haven't had it like we used to do it. We're back on August 2nd. Corporal McLaughlin is very hard at work getting it together. 2 public locations, Blackwood Fire Company on Central Avenue, Ariel Fire Company down on Ariel, New Brooklyn, and Garwood. We'll be having fireworks out here, fired off. Veterans Park will be open to view the fireworks at 9:30 that night. We're hoping to have a great night. Our junior police academy, we had our first graduation back after 2 years, had a full class. We have another, the second session is in session right now, and everything's going great. It's just really good to have these programs back up and running. So they're all going well. Have a good night.
Thank you, Chief.
Mr. Chavo?
A couple things, the 2022 road program continues. I think they're wrapping up 13th Ave, Kearsley Road, and I think Peter Cheeseman is next on the agenda, just an FYI. On another note, Gloucester Township received funding, I think back in 2018 or 2019, it was a federal fund for almost $1 million for a 10% match to finish up the Gloucester Township Health and Fitness Trail from where it ends at Oak Avenue all the way up to Evesham, the border of Runnymede. Since then, we did a lot of jumping through hoops for that money and NJDEP permitting, but we finally received authorization to go out to bid. We worked with the federal liaison for the funding to increase that to almost $1.2 million with the 0% local match, saving the town about $100,000. So that should be getting around in the next 60 days. Thank you.
Mr. Hutchison?
Thank you very much for coming. Be safe.
Mrs. Winters?
Thank everyone for coming out.
Mrs. Estrada?
Thank you all for coming out.
Mr. Mercado?
Thank you, everyone, for coming out. Thank you, Chief, and Corporal McLaughlin for your leadership on National Night Out. Again, a sign of things reopening in our township as we go. Fall will be upon us pretty soon. In September, we have not done this for the last, excuse me? Oh, yeah, it's fall. August is around the corner. In our September council meetings, we will, as we've done in previous years, honor Hispanic Heritage Month. So that'll be our second meeting in September. In October, our pumpkin festival planning, the food truck event is happening again. Trunk or treat returns to Veterans Park. All of those things are being planned and they're forthcoming in the upcoming months. So we look forward to seeing all of you that are here and all of you who are watching from home. With that, I entertain a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a great evening, everyone.
Well,